I'm Elizabeth Otters White, and I'm excited to share this recording of a networking workshop that I led recently. I encourage you to follow along, and I've added places where you can pause the video to give you time to engage in the reflections and the activities. So, in the workshop, we'll consider what you specifically want and need from your network, and then we'll focus on ways of attaining that feel authentic and that suit your particular preferences and your unique circumstances. So, I hope you'll leave with a clear next step that feels really easy and doable. And if you find this helpful, please share it with others. As always, thanks for being here and thanks for being you. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here. It's good to see you again. Invite you to have your video on if you're comfortable. There's no obligation, but we will have some opportunities to sort of participate and engage together. Um, and in chat as well. So, you do what feels comfortable to you. Hopefully you all have something to write on and write with. A computer's fine or something like that, but I'm going to have us do an exercise where we're kind of like making columns and things. So if you do have a piece of paper and a pencil or pen, that would be ideal. Okay. So let's just get started by sharing the objectives for today. And I think I shared these in the email as well. So we have two main objectives. One is just to offer improved awareness of what we want and need from our networks. And that's going to vary, right, from one person to another. So let's get a sense of what we each are looking for in our networks. And then I want to make sure that we all leave with at least one clear, doable next step, okay, for strengthening our professional circles in ways that feel natural to us, okay, that feel easy and authentic. So that's where I hope we're headed. How does that sound to everyone? Maybe give me a thumbs up or awesome. Awesome. Thank you all. All right. So let's start by just considering this word networking. Okay. So maybe if you are willing, some of you feel brave, you could share with the group what comes to mind.
I think it feels a little daunting because you have to kind of put yourself out there. It's kind of like tiring, I think,
Yeah.
in a negative way, but obviously a positive thing too, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and sometimes the first things that come to our mind are not always the positive ones, right? The positive ones we have to think a little more carefully, and then those come to the surface. So, yes, I think what you've just shared is very common, very relatable. What about others? What comes to mind? Anybody else willing to share? I see there are things in chat, so let's take a look here. Connection, great. Yeah. Mad Men business suits, thank you. Yeah, overwhelming, exciting. Yes, yeah. If your mic's not going, chat business card exchanges. Yeah, I love this Mad Men. Yeah, I mean it can be daunting. I mean, I will say, like when I think about networking, the first thing that comes to my mind is, frankly, it's not even something that comes to my mind. It's something that comes to my body, which is like, right? It's just this like, okay, that constriction or tensing up. So it can be very nerve-wracking. Now, for others of us, maybe not, right? We each have our own experience. And so then we want to focus on where we each are today. And like I said, what we want, where we want to go, and identify some steps to get us there. Okay. So when we think about where we want to go, whoops, let's start with the dream. Okay. So I want to invite you, if you want to close your eyes, that can be helpful. There's no obligation. If you want to turn off your video for a second, if you're more comfortable that way, that's fine. But I want us to just kind of drop in and take a minute to truly envision the dream. Okay. Imagine that we are supported by our ideal perfect network, right? And just, I'm going to close my eyes for a minute just as I'm kind of talking us through this. So, because I want us to truly almost like embody that, right? So, what is in your mind's eye when you envision that perfect network? What do you see? What do you sense? What do you feel? How are you engaging? How are they engaging with you? Just take a few moments to really kind of explore that. And then once you feel like you've gotten what you can, recognizing some of us will have all kinds of thoughts and some very few, then take a minute to jot down what you're seeing, what you're feeling. I see that some of you are already starting to share what you observed or what you saw or felt or learned, this awareness in the chat. And I would encourage you to continue to do that. Or if you're willing and comfortable to share aloud, maybe something that you discovered as a part of that dream network. Is anybody willing to share aloud?
I can share.
Thank you.
It's finally nice to meet you virtually. What
Yeah.
I wrote down, just some words came to me is supported,
Mhm.
trust, add value to each other, mutual respect, and role modeling.
Mm, lovely. And Claire, how did it feel when you thought about having all of those things? How did that make you feel?
Um, it feels I welcome network.
Mhm.
This word, some of the anxiety because a lot of introvert
Mm,
can take the anxiety down when we see this from the connection perspective, like could be information, emotional support, and role modeling.
yes, I love that connection. And that's, I think, is a big focus, I hope, of what we'll talk about today. I once heard someone say that you should focus on making a connection, not an impression.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that that alone reduces the anxiety, right? Because if we're worried about how are we showing up, what are they thinking, right? We're not even present, right? We're certainly not being, and embodied and really being ourselves and making a connection with someone else. Our mind is entirely elsewhere, right? Just spinning in anxiety. And so focused on that exchange, I think that's another piece that people often feel hesitant, especially people who are earlier in their careers. And I think it applies to all of us, though, to reach out. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to bother someone. They don't have time. I don't want to, right? And we forget about all the benefits that can come from that positive exchange, right? That it really is a connection where we're both giving and taking. And so, yeah, thank you for sharing that, Claire. I really appreciate that. Let's take a look at chat quickly. Let's see. We've got, see if my cursor wants to show up. There we go. Sharing ideas comfortably in a supportive and encouraging environment. Affirmation, intelligence, follow up, not on my own. Yeah, I think that echoes what Claire was saying too about this sense of being belonging, right? And being supported and a part of something. A diverse range of people, holistic support, sharing of authentic selves, safety. Yeah, reciprocity, lift each other up, connection, belonging, role modeling. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you all. No judgment. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting, these things that are coming up. It's no wonder that networking can feel a little bit intimidating or scary, right? I mean, we are putting ourselves out there and risking, by being vulnerable, we're risking some judgment, right? We're risking um depending on the way that we're doing it, right? We can feel like we're risking a lot. At the same time, as I hope you saw when you were envisioning this dream state, there's so much that can be gained, right? And we can really grow both personally and professionally, right? Through these connections. So speaking of that, let's now do a little bit of a reality check. Okay, so I don't want to lose sight of the dream, right? Let's keep that. That's out there. I'd like to invite all of us, though, now to let's do a 1 to 10 scale. So if the dream is a 10, okay, on a scale from 1 to 10, take a moment to just think about where is your current network on that scale. And you don't have to share if you want to keep that private, but scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the dream. Where's your current network? All right. So now what I'd like us to do is something that's called a question burst. And some of you may be familiar with this technique. I see a couple of people nodding. I experienced it in a webinar a couple of years ago with some people who sort of, I think, pioneered this approach, although it's pretty simple, so anybody can do it, right? And it was amazing how powerful it was. So the idea is really simple. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to generate as many questions as you can concerning any challenges or gaps in your network, right? So we know what the 10 is and we know where we are. And I mean, if any of you were at that perfect 10, I'm like so excited and really, really hope that you will share with us how you got there. I'm kind of guessing, given that you're here, you're probably not, most of you, at that perfect 10. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes. As I said, I want you to generate as many questions, no answers, no filtering, right? This is a brainstorming exercise. As many questions as you can about any challenges, gaps, wonderings about your network. And you can start now. Okay, time's up. Anybody get more than 10 questions written down? Anybody get more than 10? It's what they say, to aim for 10. I didn't share at least 10. I didn't share that part, but looks like a couple of you. Anybody get at least, say, 7? Yeah? Okay. Okay. Good. How do you feel? Is anybody willing to share, either in chat or aloud, how you felt sort of before and how you feel now after having jotted down some questions? I can tell you how I felt when I did this exercise. Um, and I'll ask, also I'll share, because as I mentioned, I learned this on a webinar. There were about 1,800 people on the webinar that I attended where they tested this. And they did a pre and post kind of poll, how you were feeling. And after 2 minutes of just generating questions about a challenge that we were facing, something like 80, I don't remember the exact number, call it 85% of people felt better, which I think is amazing. So I would say this is also a little tool that I would encourage us to just apply, right? It doesn't only apply to networking. We can use this anytime we're facing a challenge to just kind of get things flowing, shake things loose a little bit. So that's the question burst. Notice my questions were a bit about, will I have fun? Will it be helpful? Oh, we know you like to have fun, Linda. All right, excellent. Thank you. Okay. So now that we know, oh, good, here, I was able to see a running thematic in my questions, which can be helpful to address. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Okay. So, so now we're hopefully grounded in some understanding of where we'd love to be, where we currently are, what kind of wonderings or questions we have about that. And now I want to focus on two particular approaches for starting to close that gap, okay, between where we are and where we want to be. And we're going to spend probably a little more time on the first than the second, but we're going to spend a little time on both. So the first is expanding our network. And then the second is tapping into our current network in a way that's more intentional, right? Making the best use possible of our current network. So this is where the paper comes in. So if you joined a minute late, hopefully you've got paper and pencil or pen. And I would encourage you to just, hold it like this if you've got it, and just make a line right down the center. So we're going to use the columns separately here. Yes, Linda shared something that I'm very curious about, but I'll have to check that later. Maybe while you all are doing some independent work here. Okay, so in the first column, we're going to brainstorm and do this individually, ways to expand one's network. And notice I've used intentional language here. I have not said ways to expand my network. I'm not asking you to do any of these things. These are not things that you ever have to do. These are just what are all the ways that you can come up with brainstorming that someone might expand their network. Okay. So I'll give you a couple minutes just in that left-hand column, just jot down as many ideas as you have. You're not going to have to do any of these if you don't want to. Okay, whenever you're ready, the next step for the right-hand column is to list the names of people in your current network who are like shining stars for you, right? Who are like the avatar, the ideal sort of embodiment or representation of what you want in your network. If you don't have that professionally, then maybe think about another aspect of your life, right? Whether you have it personally or if you've had it in the past. Okay, it doesn't have to be current, but take time to think about like who are the few people, or maybe many, if you're lucky, who are like, I would just love a bunch of these, right? People just like this, and take time to write those names down. Okay. So I'm going to work under the assumption that we all have a list of lots of ideas about how we might expand our networks, and then a list of at least one, two, maybe more people who are just, who really exemplify like what we want in our networks, right? Now, what I'd like you to do, and maybe you're already one step ahead of me and you've done this, I want you to draw lines connecting the ways to expand your network to the people who are stars in your current network. In other words, how did you meet them? How did they come to join your network? Maybe it's a way that's not even on your list of ideas, right? So maybe we need to add to our list of ways to expand one's network. Okay, but just take a minute to think about that and reflect about that. How did these people come to be a part of your network? All right, what did you learn? I'd love to hear voices if you're willing. Those of you who have mics that are working. Um, Anybody willing to share observations? What did you notice or learn?
A lot of them are from my school or my workplace.
Okay. Okay. And how did you encounter them? Was it just natural because you were in, maybe in classes together or in the hallway or in meetings together, that kind of thing?
Uh, yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And you had something in common, I guess, right? Also, that brought you together. Mhm. Thank you. What about others? What did you notice?
Okay, so what I observed is most of the people that I have as the stars in my network are people that are like my mentors from work, people that I look up to.
Mm.
Yeah. So I met them in the process of working with them. Yeah.
Okay.
I included some personal ones, like my mom, but
Aw.
if we're speaking professionally, then um, those that are from work, yeah, my
Yeah.
supervisors and some people that I co-instruct with. Yeah, and
Okay.
then my supervisor from school when I was a student has the kind of network that I admire. Yeah,
Ah, thank you.
yeah,
Thank you. Sensing a theme here, right? Sounds like some similar ways of connecting. I see in chat, we've got, I didn't meet any of my stars on the ways I identified in expanding one's network. Yeah, I have had that exact experience when doing this exercise. Um, it's can be really interesting. The other thing that I've done this exercise in a variety of contexts. And sometimes I'll find I generate all these ideas like this and this and this and this, right? And then I realize when I'm connecting the lines, there's like one thing that really worked, right? And I think that can be comforting because this can be overwhelming, right? We can think we have to do so many different things to build our networks. And sometimes just focusing on one or two things can really have a big impact. Following up on chance meetings, what a great observation and a great suggestion too. Yeah, sometimes these chance meetings, there's just really some um, serendipity or synchronicity there. Ways to expand network equals stars equals saying yes to coffee or conversation. Simple and easy. We like it. Simple and easy. That's what we want. Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, good. So this was a little bit about expanding our networks, right? That's what we've been thinking about. Now let's spend a few minutes thinking about making the most of our current network. And and perhaps bringing some of the, now understanding and awareness that we have from this process, right? About who are the stars in our network. And how might that inform how we want to continue to cultivate and deepen, maybe, right? Strengthen, deepen our existing networks, making the most of those. So, what I'd like to invite you to do is just again take a couple minutes to brainstorm. And then we're going to do, in fact, it's up to you if you want to write and then type in chat or if you just want to type directly in chat. Because what I'd love to do is kind of a crowdsourcing type approach here, right? So, what are the different ideas that we collectively have from making the most of our current networks, right? Maybe these are things you're already doing and you discovered they work really well, or maybe they're things you've been meaning to do and you've kind of been holding back, or just things that are occurring to you right now. They're just ways that we can really um, leverage in a positive way. Sometimes that word has a negative connotation, right? Sort of like, but positive. We're talking about, right, give and take, this relationship, these connections. How can we magnify those? Maybe that's the better word. I'll give you a couple minutes. Whenever you're ready, if you want to just start sharing some ideas in chat, I'd love to see, and we can sort of collect those and hopefully all benefit. And again, this is a brainstorming exercise, so these don't have to be the greatest ideas in the world, just anything that came to mind. It's funny how sometimes something might not strike us as that valuable, but when we're in a group and we share it, someone else, it turns out to be the perfect thing for them. So appreciate your willingness to share. So what do we have? Stop being tired. I'm going to skip the other parenthetical statement. Stop being tired, say yes to invites. Yeah, I mean, I think this is really important, right? Because on the one hand, it does take a little energy, right? I mean, it doesn't happen, it's not free in a sense. It's not automatic. On the other hand, we don't want to overdo it. I mean, we don't need to push ourselves. We certainly don't want to push ourselves beyond our limits. And we want to be mindful of our energy. And sometimes, actually, these networking things in the end increase our energy, right? We don't always expect that going in. But once we've connected with someone and we really feel seen and we're learning from one another, right? We can actually leave with more energy than we started. Other times it's draining. And that's another thing to pay attention to, right? And when we're working on expanding our networks. Yeah, make the overture. Don't wait to be asked or invited. Yeah. And again, that can be hard for people. And I tell you, especially because of this whole, oh, I'm bothering them, they're busy. You know, people don't have to say yes to you, right? You can ask for help, and and people can say no, or people can give you part of what you ask for, right? Um, let's see what else. Don't wait for an issue where I need wisdom. Networks need care and feeding. Yeah, right. This I think is a particularly important observation coming out of COVID, right? Because everything kind of came to a screeching halt. Things were so disrupted. Things did not happen the way we were used to them happening. And a lot of us got out of those habits of just kind of the regular care and feeding of relationships. right? And now I think a number of people feel, um, they're a little afraid, frankly, to reach back out and cultivate those networks again. I can just tell you that you are helping others by doing that because people are feeling still, right? People are feeling isolated. People are feeling um, alone and wanting more connection. So when we reach out to someone else, we're also giving them that gift of connection. Drop a note of congrats when I see something. Yes, lovely. Be humble and curious about them. It's not always about me, but it's mostly about me. Hey, I like it. I think that's actually a great way to capture networking, right? It is about us, and it should be, right? Because we want to know what we want and need, right? To be our best, to continue to grow professionally, personally, right? We need to think about that. We also need to remember that, as I said, I mean, kind of sounding like a broken record, but these are not, when we're talking about a network, we're not talking about a transactional relationship, right? We're talking about relationships where we both benefit. And I can even remember back to like when I was a junior faculty member and I was working with senior faculty and I was sort of wondering like, what do I really have to even contribute to this relationship? And in addition to being sort of more recently, trained, which has some benefits. One of my co-authors struggled to get papers out, even though he was really experienced, super, super smart. And so I could help him that way. We don't always know, right, what we're doing to help others, and yet that's often there. Attending social hours, yes. Accepting invitations. Oh, I love this one. Telling them of your needs specifically. Yeah. Yeah. Because then that's right. Then they can leverage their networks, right, to help you put the word out even more broadly. I think that's excellent. Keeping in touch. Easy to forget people and move on. Can stay in touch online too. Yeah, it is. And it takes some intention, right? Intention and attention, both, to kind of keep these things going. Host social events, invite your networks. Now, these are all, I love these. Follow up after a project wraps up to see how someone's doing. Yeah. And how lovely that is, right? To check in with someone and how lovely it would be for others to do that for us, right? So cultivating that. I think that's another thing that I often think about when talking with clients, especially if they're hesitant to do something, is remember you're a role model, right? Whatever you're doing, whether you are in a position of power and authority or not, you are giving other people permission to behave in similar ways, right? Whether that is not checking email when you're on vacation, um, or reaching out to check in on people, right? Whatever it is, we are setting the tone. We're helping to build the culture. Um, be more confident about reaching out to people, believe that you have something valuable to share and contribute. Beautiful. And you all do. Absolutely 100%. 100% have something to contribute and to share that's valuable for sure. That's not in question. Join the network or group I find energizing. Focus on connection instead of impression. Yes, love that. Provide value, keep in touch, follow up, celebrating together. So important, right? It's not only about like, oh, I need help or like, like let's find some joy together. Let's celebrate. Let's help each other out, of course, when we're feeling down, right? Like that's one of the nice things about collaborating, at least in my experience. Like when I'm ready to throw in the towel, usually, hopefully, the people I'm working with are feeling a little bit better and vice versa, right? So we can bring each other together, bring each other up together. I tend to withdraw from asking for help from my current or former supervisors because I'm worried of disappointing them with my progress. Oh, so common. But just reminding myself that they want to help me and it's okay to ask for help. Thank you so much for your willingness to share that. That is so critical. Um, and we just hurt ourselves, right? I see so many people who they haven't done what they were supposed to do, right? This is in big, big, big air quotes, supposed to do. And so they withdraw and hide. And then and then they don't do it, of course, right? Or whatever it is, right? And then it just gets longer. And then they feel like now the bar's even higher. I'm supposed to have accomplished even more. And this is just like, this can perpetuate. And I think when we do actually reach out, it can be such a relief. Um, Frankly, and maybe this is part of the challenge of creating networks. Other people just are not thinking that much about us and what we're supposed to be doing. They have their own stuff, you know? They're not keeping tabs on us. So letting them know how we're doing when we need help. Yeah. I mean, people appreciate being able to offer help as well. Um, Identify goals, intention, stay engaged, mutual benefit. Yep. Do as much or as little as I feel like, respect others too. Yes. Yeah, it can be up and down. You don't have to do stuff all the time, right? And I think this is a great segue into how I'd like to spend our last, 10, 15 minutes together. And that is around identifying what are our next steps. Okay. So what I'd like each of us to do, a few minutes ago, half hour ago, something like that, we evaluated or assessed on a scale from 1 to 10 where our current network is. Some of you shared that in chat, some of you just haven't. What I'd like us to do is come up with a small step with the objective of increasing that rating by a half point. And I really want to emphasize that, a half point. We are not trying to get to a 10 right now. We are not laying out that strategy, okay? Unless you're at a 9.5, then you're getting to a 10, okay? So I'd like you to just take a couple of minutes, reflect on everything that you've sort of discovered yourself over the last 45 minutes, and identify one small step that you'd like to take. And then I'm going to ask you some questions about those. And if you're willing to share your step, I would really appreciate it. Share it in chat. You can share it aloud. Saying these things out loud with other people present, is one way of really solidifying that commitment. So I'll give you a few minutes to think, and then if you want to share aloud or in chat. All right, let's share again if you're willing. So I see a couple in chat here. Also, if you'd like to share aloud, I welcome that. So let's see, we've got identify goals, intention, stay engaged. Oh, sorry, that was earlier. Set up one coffee date every week to both expand and reinforce my network. Nice. Say yes to one more thing and be okay to say no if it's not value added for me. Excellent. You can continue to ponder, and as I said, I'm going to ask you some questions. Follow up with someone I just missed in person today. Send that person an email. Perfect. So I'd like to ask you a few questions here to just refine your thinking. Okay. The first question is, when are you going to do it? Some of you have already given a timeline, right? For some of you, it's something you want to do on a regular basis. For some of you, it's a one shot. I would say, to keep it really small and doable, let's just do it the first time, right? Even if it's something you want to do regularly, let's focus on doing it once. Ask for help more. Yeah, yeah. So let's think about that. Let's put a timeline on it, right? How soon is there something that you could benefit from some help on right now? And if so, when could you reach out? Right? So that's the first question. If we put a time on it, I think it just makes it more real. We're probably more likely to do it. What support do you need? Right? Is this something that's easy for you to do? That's hopefully, right? But if it's still feeling a little bit like, not sure, right? What kind of support can you get to help you, right? If it's meeting others for coffee, maybe it's bringing a friend or colleague with you, right? That you already feel really comfortable with and asking that other person to join you, right? So maybe it's just sharing your concern with someone who's a great listener and will encourage you, right? Whatever it is, just think about what kind of support do you need to actually take this next step. Accountability. So how would you like to hold yourself accountable? Right? Assuming you really want to take this step. And I really hope that all of us will leave today with a commitment to take this step. And if it doesn't feel like you can commit to the step now, I think it's too big. Okay? It's too hard. So this brings us sort of to the next question about confidence. Just as we asked, where is our network on a 1 to 10 scale, we can ask, how confident are we on a 1 to 10 scale that we will actually take the next step that we have identified? And we can also, to take this a step further, say, how can we increase our confidence by a half a point, right? So we can just repeat this kind of exercise. What can we do to increase our confidence? If our confidence, if we're at like a 6, I'll just tell you right now, it's pretty likely by the time you're off this call, you're not going to do it. I mean, maybe you will, and I would be so, so excited. And I would love for you to email me and tell me you did it. I just know that mm, we're kind of like, that's a still, I'm mulling it over kind of level of confidence, right? And if that's how you're feeling, just make it even smaller and easier. Like, let me try to think of something like it could be, I'm just going to open up my email and like see who I got emails from 2 years ago. And is there anybody in there that I might want to reach out to? Fine. Beautiful. That's a great next step, right? It it can be anything. Open the web page for my university or my department or my whatever and see if there's anybody that I kind of know but haven't seen them in a while, right? Whatever. That can be the step. You don't even have to do anything after that. Okay? And that brings us to the final thing, right? Which is ease. We want this to be easy. And if it doesn't feel easy, let's shift it, right? Make it smaller, get more help, increase the accountability, change the timeline. Okay. So take a second to kind of ponder these questions. And then if you need to modify your next step, please, please do so. Okay. I'll be quiet for a couple minutes before we come together to close. So I know we just have a few minutes left, and I just want to comment on a couple of things in the chat that I really appreciate, right? Is this just this value of taking small steps, right? Like many of us, I'll just acknowledge, right? A lot of us have a tendency, baby steps can feel insufficient, right? It's so exciting to like redo the whole thing, big overhaul, woo, right? It's energizing. And then it almost immediately can turn to total overwhelm. And so if we can start to train ourselves to like, yeah, it really is this sort of slow and steady wins the race, right? And we get momentum and we have early wins and we see that progress, right? Um, so I hope you all have that experience as well. So before we close, I'm wondering if any of you have closing thoughts that you would like to share before I share one more thing. Any key takeaways maybe or just final thoughts to share with the group? Yay! Planning to take a baby step this afternoon. Awesome. I love it. Thank you. Always been a little skittish about coffee with faculty. Yes, yes, yes. Awesome. Very good. Very good. Yeah. There's strength in numbers, you know? We can grow our network through our network. I don't know if any of you discovered that, but this is something that I've learned from this exercise is how many times I have been connected with people through other people that I'm already connected to, right? And that can be a fantastic way. So, and keep the thoughts coming if you have them, please, in the chat. I just want to reiterate um, the importance of connection and knowing that you are bringing something to the table, right? This is not about you being a burden, any of us being a burden. It's about us building relationships that are mutually beneficial. and doing it in a way that is sustainable and feels authentic and easy. Okay. Um, yeah, it's also nice to note that we all have networking concerns, no matter how perfect your network might be. Yeah. I mean, we're all in this, right? We're all in this together. So I just want to share one final thought before we end. I don't know if any of you know the author Anne Lamott, but I think she's quite brilliant. She writes fiction, but is a lot of nonfiction as well, and that's what I'm most familiar with her for. But she has this quote: lighthouses don't go running all over an island looking for boats to save. They just stand there shining. And I chose that for today because I just want to remind us, right? We don't have to go crazy doing a million things, right? We can pay attention to the way we show up. Um, we can, let our light shine and, put ourselves out there in ways that feel natural to us, draw others to us. Thank you all so much for being here. I see a few more things in the chat here that I will take a look at. I'm happy to stay on if anyone has any questions or anything else that you'd like to chat about. I hope this was valuable. I hope that we got to some of the things that you all were hoping to get to. Appreciate seeing you all. Thanks for being here. Thank you all. Bye.